Back to newshooter.com's live coverage here at NAB 2013, and today we're going to be talking about is DSLR dead? Now I have a very, very distinguished panel of gentlemen with me here today. I have Andy Shipsides from Abel Cine, I have Jason Wingrove from Jason Wingrove, and I have Paul Schnieder.
Hello.
Now, I'm going to start with you, Jason, in the middle.
Great.
Simple, straight out question.
Yeah, easy.
Is DSLR dead?
If I sat on the fence and said it's dying, would that do? I kept thinking, what is my answer going to be? This is not an easy question. This is not an easy answer. It should be an interesting debate because everyone's going to have an opinion. So the short and sweet answer is there's a bit of a smell. There's a funny smell in the air.
Okay, Paul, with Blackmagic's announcements today, they're sort of down into DSLR territory, very much so.
They certainly
Why
are.
would someone buy a DSLR, say, over a Blackmagic?
I think really the only reason why anyone would buy a DSLR over that would be for comfort and form factor. Really, that would be the only reason I would do it. I mean, I think the Blackmagic cameras are pretty amazing, especially for the price point they're willing to pull off. But as you know, someone who spends a lot of their time, you know, in the trenches shooting, I just think that there's a certain amount of, you know, there's certain things that have evolved on sets that you have to be able to accommodate for, and for the last few years, we've been trying to do the same thing with DSLRs. A lot of people have anyway, and trying to bring them up to where we were when we had film, and now we have these nicer cameras, and they need to, you know, they're coming down to that range, but they need to kind of catch up in those same ways as well.
Now, Andy, you're at Abel Cine, so say over the last 18 months or so, giving it sort of a time frame, have you seen?
6 months now.
Okay, yeah, exactly right. Have you seen a shift at all in terms of what people are using or purchasing?
Yeah, well, certainly, you know, we've seen it. We because of what we deal, we've seen that downward trend happen pretty quickly. Even 18 months ago, it really hit hard. I guess you could say, you agree on that number. So we have seen the trend go away from it into, you know, I guess these new large sensor, small camera bodies as much as possible. We see a lot of that. You know, we still have a lot of clients that are using them, but not necessarily the A anymore. It's the alternate camera. But I mean, to the last question, the only thing I would say, the reason why why it's still alive, maybe, is that there's a lot of people just hold that look. They love the look of it. You know, but not even the 5D2, for instance. They love that look. But that's really about
the
that.
look of the actual footage?
The footage,
or, yeah.
like the quality, the sort of mushiness of it.
There is a certain mushy, we're kind of getting used to the mushy.
Yeah, which is, so producers do ask for it, so that's why it's hanging on, but I think given the right alternative, which just seems like we're getting those alternatives now.
And Jason, you've had a lot of experience using DSLRs, and I know you still get a lot of client requests that they would rather you shoot with DSLR than say Epic to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I think Paul and I, we've kind of talked about this, so we're going to there won't be much butting heads on this thing, but I own an Epic, and I own a 5D Mark III, and I had a 5D Mark II before then, so after getting used to the two, I then stupidly went ahead and bought another one, so there wasn't that much wrong with the first one. Yeah. But I got to say, I mean, I have to thank DSLRs for, I think, reinventing what we do, reinventing myself in a way, is that it made me want to pick up a camera again. I was a director for 10, 12 years, and even though I was in the camera department for a long time, I kind of let the shooting happen, you know, I gave it up to cinematographers, and I've sort of, with the fun and the sort of making you want to get out of the bed in the morning, go shoot something fun with DSLRs, actually has reinvigorated that back now, and now I almost can't put the camera down, regardless of whatever it is. But because I have both, and I have both of those Epic and, you know, grown-up cameras and DSLR stuff work on my reel.
Yeah.
What is consistent still at the moment is that of a whole bunch of stuff on my reel, the stuff where the clients say, that thing there, that's what we like. We want that stuff there. And I said, well, that is 5D. Consistently, the stuff on my reel, maybe it's the fact that I was just freer, or it was a personal project and I had more fun with it and less restrictions, or it was or I think it partly, as you say, it is the full frame thing.
Yeah.
One thing that's going to kill the whole DSLR off is when we get grown up full frame.
Full frame sensor.
But my original point is that I think DSLRs are still. I don't necessarily get asked to shoot with DSLRs, but people will come to me with that and say, we love that about your reel. So I can't then necessarily, great, no problem, your new project, no worries, I'll do it exactly like that and I'll shoot it on the Epic because it won't, as much as I'd love to be professional about it.
Right. Yeah, well, that's exactly the thing, right? The perception of it is still, like everything I shoot commercially is either going to be on an Epic or an Alexa, or I mean maybe a Scarlett or something like that occasionally. Everything is always that, but the best 3 things on my reel, the things that people consistently, the things that have got me work the last 2 years, were shot on 7Ds. You know, so they were like, and yeah, it's exactly that same thing. They'll call you for that work, and then suddenly you're going off to shoot something, and you're trying to drag a huge camera package into something that was probably shouldn't be.
Yeah,
a huge
I think it's an interesting time at the moment because everyone's used to. We've now just got used to shooting DSLRs. We've all now got all the rigs. Finally, all the bits and pieces are in place. You can get rigs. You can get your viewfinder. You can get it ergonomically. All of the problems are now all finally sorted. Just at the time when we're starting to think, any minute that there'll be a solution.
Now you get one that's this big, and you have to figure that out again.
Yeah.
16 millimeter.
There's solutions every time you turn around. I mean, this is, I normally come and cover the show with take my 5D and travel, but now, this is Super 35. Super 35 that can shoot 1080p at whatever. I mean, it's just, happy stuff. It doesn't think, but unheard of, whatever, even 3 years ago.
So that becomes more back to the sort of, for you, like the walk around, almost consumer-y camera that you like to have for just everyday kind of stuff.
With some shallow depth.
With shallow depth for look, right? And then you have your real cameras for everything.
Yeah,
else.
exactly. I mean, for walking the show.
Yeah. And Paul, if we look around the hall today and all the different types of cameras that are on offer, I mean, a lot of them probably owe their heritage or their beginnings to the DSLR revolution, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, but I think everyone's starting to specialize now, right? It seems to be all going back. Like, I would like to say, I don't think that DSLRs are dead. I think that DSLRs are becoming their own niche, and really everything is kind of getting even more niche oriented. I think a lot of the things, like all the desires that people had, all the frustration that the pros had when DSLRs came out, those are now being answered in other cameras. And they're like starting to break down. Like I saw like some crazy little, ultra high-end tiny cameras over here earlier, and I was just like, okay, well that's like a GoPro, only it's got a much higher end picture. So I'm gonna see that on production sometime. So it's all getting niched out into this world. And I mean, I will say that I think you said horses for courses. I will say that what is dead is that now there's so many options for you that if you choose, and it's interesting with the DPs and stuff, because I'm not sure all of them know all the options yet, but if you choose the wrong option, it's painfully apparent.
The wrong tool
if
for the
you
job,
bring
absolutely.
if you bring a red to a wedding, that is the wrong thing to do. Right.
And a DSLR to a multi-camera concert.
Exactly.
That's a bad idea.
You run out of data halfway through the vows.
There's just things to deal with in terms of workflow and whatnot, and just like the preparation. And it's interesting. As a director, I never worried about any of this stuff. I never worried about it. And now it's like, for some reason, and I don't know if I'm proud of this or not, it's like I end up having to do, a lot of times, talk with this, discuss with my DPs what the best choice is, you know.
Yeah.
And then the rental thing is just a nightmare now too. It's like, what do you do?
You mean just what do you rent, or you mean
well, I mean, it's like there's so many options.
Yeah, there's so many.
And there's so many different ways. And there's so many ways that it's like package cost versus. I mean, you could easily. Sometimes it's just easier to go with a higher end camera for a bigger shoot than it is to go with a DSLR because of all the little.
Yeah, it's true.
It's an option.
They come in packages instead of having the little rig, the shoulder piece, this, that, the other thing. I mean, it gets really complicated where, an Epic, Alexa, even the Sony cameras, they come in kind of just standard kits. They're kind of ready to shoot almost, a little different, like maybe. It depends who you rent it from, I guess, and how it's
sometimes that's just production. We don't know. We just book us an Alexa, and then no one bothers to change it.
Yeah, just the way
it's like no one got fired for choosing Windows. Or if we're going with IBM.
Right. Yeah. It works. It's fine. Let's go that way. It's true.
Now, you got the Canon 1DC sitting there, which is a strange beast, really, isn't it?
It's absolutely. It's almost hard to call it.
It's part of Canon's cinema line, yet it still looks like a DSLR.
Yeah.
What do you think the apparent reasons behind that were?
Well, I mean, my personal opinion, or someone can say on camera, but honestly, it's a weird hybrid. It's a strange thing. It doesn't even feel like an SLR when you see what it can do picture-wise. I mean, the 4K image coming out of this is very impressive. It looks very good, and it has log, and it has all those modes that make it more like a cinema camera, but it's shaped like an SLR, like you said. And maybe it's
and the viewfinder doesn't work.
The viewfinder doesn't work, and the feeds. It does have a 1080 output that's clean and it's live, and that's good.
So I know, Jason, you have a pet hate with this camera.
It's best I don't start.
It's okay, and I understand. I think they just discovered that.
Hang on a second.
That this camera can do this. Oh, right. Wow, we had a camera and we...
Yeah, have you got any of those little red cinema EOS badges? We'll stick one on the front of that.
And then off it goes, and there it is, the 1DC. But at the same time, I'm really impressed with the results of it. It's weird, it's strange, but it does have a good result. And so I think it has application. And I know people that are using it for the right tool, which is that it's a small camera to put somewhere and they want a 4K result,
Yeah.
That's what they got out of it, and it's good. It's a good horse for course, where it's good. It's in small areas,
baby steps, and we're just one more of those steps away.
Yeah.
When this comes with an electronic viewfinder.
Yes.
And literally, we saw at the Sony press release yesterday.
Yes.
I mean, although their timeline is usually pretty accelerated, we could probably will see by this time next year, the Sony version of this, which will be probably the XAVC, a better codec. Electronic viewfinder, it'll be much more grown up, but still that DSLR form factor I think we're stuck with that. We're just going to get better, there's going to be less kludgy, less and less workarounds are going to be needed. It's going to have SDIs, we're going to have all the ports you need.
What do you think that
viewfinders are going to do right,
Do you think that, but I don't know, I mean personally, I don't think this is a good form factor for that kind of camera though.
This form factor works great when you can do that.
But only when you can do that. This
is why they were designed to do that.
So you're saying with the Sony with like an OLED there, and it's opposed to a mirror because that mirror doesn't work.
Exactly. You just electronics turn it on, great. Oh,
yeah. But what about a heavy lens?
This is why the ergonomics doesn't work because everyone has to work off this thing.
Right.
I don't
know. That's my opinion.
Well,
anyway.
I mean, the lens, but this lens is fine. But as soon as you go something longer, you're out of luck again. Though. It's still limiting.
You can have
I love the idea of using it for that reason. I do like that. That's what it's meant to be used for, though.
Well, and it's also just the kind of shots. It's also the kind of shots you can just get with it because it's like, I mean, I had this happen. I think when I was talking about the reel and the 7D stuff, it's like most of my stuff was shot. The people was shot really lightweight, very lightweight with 7D stuff. I could walk and do things, and I could be somewhere, and I could put the camera places that I couldn't normally put. And even though this is kind of a bigger beast, it's still not going to drag, that much attention when you're out in the world. You take an Epic out, it's gonna, even if it's small, it's still going to drag a lot of attention. I had an issue the other day where I was shooting I scouted a location, and then I came back and shot with an Epic. And when I was scouting the whole time, I was shooting video and everything. No one bugged me. I came back and I shot with the Epic, and I was stopped in like a second. So it's like that kind of.
So
there's a creative. So I think that's why we're going to be stuck with this form factor. Although speaking to that niche kind of thing, it's like stuff. Some of this stuff is being dragged, kicking and screaming. To me, I think that shooting bigger stuff, even with all the stuff I've said, I think shooting bigger stuff, I'm not going to be shooting DSLR for a while until the DSLRs get to a point. Like, I would love to have this camera, but you know, the rolling shutter on this thing destroys me.
That is the
destroys
worst rolling
me.
shutter, pretty much.
It's awful.
But
and it's like I can't shoot with it.
Right,
you know,
right,
I can't shoot with it, and it has like a lot. There's a lot of restrictions. I wouldn't even. I want to have an EVF on it. I want to be able to shoot it so it has that stealth thing. That's the benefit of this bin.
the DSLR might
But it's
be,
a natural step up for anyone who's kind of.
It may die, it may change, but I think the DSLR style of shooting, the stuff on the reels that the clients like, that won't go away for a while. I think that's a really, and I love it. I still.
It's the look, it's the feel of it.
The work, the work is still,
Yeah.
but the work has been driven, has come out of this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real.
This led the work, and now the work's going to kind of stay, but hopefully we'll, the kludgy workarounds are going to disappear.
Away. That's what we want. I mean,
So let me ask you
it is a
this: do
revolution.
you think by Sony this late in the game introducing a 4K full-frame DSLR-looking camera that they are trying to be the next 5D Mark II?
Well, I think the next 5D Mark II is a DSLR.
Well, I think being if you're gonna be the next 5D Mark II and sell that many cameras, then yes, you want to be that. You know, I mean, that's Sony's game, right? They want to sell cameras. So if that means they're going to sell them, they're going to put that together. But at the same time, I mean, they're very aware of where their products fall in their marketplace. So they're never going to step on their own foot. I mean, people go, why don't they do this and this and this? Well, it's intentional.
Sony?
I think it's Sony. I mean, they're good about not stepping on themselves. So I think as much as they are moving in that direction to get that market, and they will try, I think they'll stop at some point.
Maybe it's what the 5D Mark III was originally intended to be, which was, the press. You can be a serious stills camera and shoot motion picture as well. This is probably answering that call even more so. But I think what they're doing probably is making a professional, a grown-up, don't be embarrassed on set camera that you can still do that, get the DSLR style, but hopefully maybe if this is full frame, they've never said what the sensor is, I don't think. If it's full frame and it's got a great codec and you're not creating a petabyte of data every time you open your front door, and it has an electronic viewfinder, then
it's not going to be the next.
It's competitively priced, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it has to be totally competitive, and
it's sort of an estimated price for something like that should be, given what we've seen at the show so far.
You go first. I'll think about it while you're talking.
Well, I think they could probably put it at. I mean, honestly, really competitive price, under 4K easily. I think they should do under 4K.
I was going to say 4K.
Yeah.
And how much would it have to be for you to pick it up and buy it, Jason? How much would it have to be, that camera?
Wow. If it's full frame, if it does all those things, ticks up my sort of the unicorn camera thing, it can be whatever, because I'll probably be selling the Epic to buy it, so I'll have the money to spend. So I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You want this.
Realistically,
you want that.
It'd have to be in the middle of whatever their high-end full frame DSLR is currently, and say an F5, or even say an F3, which I'm probably these days are probably numbered. I'd say F3's probably on the way out. So. That's probably 10 grand.
Could be.
And people will, I think people will buy that. Maybe by this time next year when it comes out, maybe 10 grand will seem too expensive.
I don't know. I'm afraid of it then.
I don't think. I think that people think it's got to go lower.
Yeah.
Because I think that 10 grand is a reasonable world for that camera. I mean, from a technology space, I think it's like a reasonable thing, but I think that people want so much more, and that's one of the reasons I think things are going in these niche markets, because it's like suicide for any of these companies to deliver everything in one package for that much money.
Why would they want to do that? What's the advantage to do that? They would rather have chunks.
Yeah, you got to break it off.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like I don't think any of it's going to be the new 5D market. I don't think. I mean, that thing is something we haven't seen yet. That is, the little camera that just Blackmagic's little camera that just came. It's like something totally different that we don't really know. That just is going to open up new things. I mean, in
Just
many
like
ways,
that.
GoPro is one of those things.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
like it's
They made this trend. They started a trend, and we all move
Yeah.
forward. And to have that
People-
sort of impact is hard. You know.
Yeah.
People have made a niche for the Blackmagic camera, which I thought it had no niches, or a very, very niche within a niche. But that, I think the little pocket camera will, that's, if you can shoot something that's almost doing like a kind of it's got high dynamic range, and it's shooting kind of raw, or a good usable codec, and it doesn't look all compressed and DSLR-y and all crushed up. That can be a crash cam, a rig cam. It's the thinking person's GoPro. It's terrific for UAVs, for the aerial vehicles,
I think
which
just alone
this show
the
floor
GoPro
is
thing.
littered with. A lot of people are putting modified GH2s, GH3s, and Blackmagic cameras in there.
Right.
You don't care about the small sensor if you're 100 feet up in the air. You're not worried about getting shallow depth. You just want a really nice, sharp, fine image.
Right. I think it's going to be a real. I think that's got a real kick on GoPro. It really could do a lot in that world, and a lot more. Yeah.
So do you guys think that the line in the sand is being washed away between prosumer and professional cameras now, in terms of the price that people can now get access to?
I think
these
it's been going on
cameras?
for a while. I think it's been going on for a good while. I mean,
the 5D kind of started to wash that away because it was
yeah.
something that was intended clearly for prosumerish, and got dragged into a whole different part of the beach.
Yeah. No, I think it's an ongoing, and it will continue to get that way. I mean, look at Blackmagic, look at Sony. They're going to keep doing it to themselves. I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, it's good in the sense that it allows people to access the stuff, and from a perspective of a company that sells high-end equipment, it's not the best. That means that Best Buy can sell the same cameras that we can sell.
Absolutely.
And it's not good for you either. Because
and on a production level,
yeah.
it's, like, I'm a DGA director.
Right, yeah.
And I can't shoot, anything that I'm shooting commercially, I can't shoot for, the smallest crew I could even conceive of using is 8 or 10 people.
Right.
So it's like, okay, 8 or 10 people with the little Blackmagic camera. At a certain point, people start, there's this like bang for the buck factor that happens when you shoot. Yeah. And a lot of it is completely well-founded. When you have you have levels of redundancy when you're shooting, and you're able to guarantee that when you go out and shoot, you're going to get what you came to shoot.
But that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, though. If you have a really expensive machine, you need all the bits to be able to make it work. If you've got a really small, compact, the risk is less, so you need less backup for the risk.
Absolutely true. But it's like, when we're talking about what that means for the industry, and what it means, what it means for you, what it means for. Me, I'm always going to be, no matter what way the industry goes for me, I'm going to be able to shoot, whether I end up going smaller or shooting more stuff of my own. But the industry is such that it's used to shooting a certain way. I can't shoot with the Blackmagic camera. No. I can't go on set with one
Do
of
you
those.
think it's important in this day and age, given the wide variety of cameras that are out there, for say, a DP or whatever, to be very familiar with just about every single camera that's there? Because if you get a request and somebody, it may not be the right choice, but the client is insisting on, okay, we want you to shoot it on this, then you have to be familiar with it, or would you turn that work away?
The DPs just all want to shoot on Alexa, so it doesn't matter. They don't need to know anything else. All they need to know is Alexa in their minds.
Or they own one.
Or they own one.
So they really want to shoot on Alexa.
That's going back to the thing before. The people actually are using it as an income source, whether you know it or not.
That's the other thing that's changed. Everyone's using it.
Changing the market towards cheap cameras erodes the industry down to a consumer market that we're not even prepared to deal with. It really does hurt people, whether you know it or not. Rental companies go under. Post-production companies go under. We're talking major industry disappearing because of consumerism.
But because of all this, I do have clients now for the first time in my entire life that I have to, when I go to shoot a spot, they'll ask what camera I'm using, and they will veto cameras.
Really,
Really? And it's a very schizophrenic thing because most of them don't really know what they're talking about.
And they would never go and check on the day,
Well, I've had people veto epics for 5Ds because they've heard of 5Ds.
Heard of 5D, that's very true.
And I've heard of, and I've definitely had people veto epics because they had a horrible experience with a 5-year-old Red.
First version.
Exactly.
And I've had, and it's like, and I've had people veto Aries because they didn't I actually had a shoot recently, which is a total oxymoron, that someone vetoed an Alexa because they had a bad experience working with it, and they happened to have a really good experience working with an Epic. You know, in the workflow.
You're probably the same with crew, right? You know, if that job we worked together, that was a dog. I never used him again, even though it had nothing to do.
Word of
You
mouth still works,
just subconsciously. So it's just association.
I'm also finding in a commercial sense too that there is more people trying to undercut you, maybe by using cheaper cameras and getting jobs that way. Are clients still going with the professional? With the
clients,
professional
clients will try. You know, or in general, I find that my clients want to go with the nicer. They still want the whole experience. It hasn't got to, at least in the commercial level, which is the only one I can speak to, it hasn't got to a point where things have gotten low enough where they're willing to sacrifice. Now, the one thing that we talked about earlier, the benefit that I've run into with shooting DSLRs and things, is I've actually been able to increase a lot of my, because you're shooting more run and gun and it's faster and they're harder to monitor and other things, I've actually been able to make the crew and things and their expectations smaller in terms of like video village and stuff like that. No longer I can hand people monitors. I can hand people monitors and say run with me, and if you can't run with me, then you know that's what it is. Instead of people sitting around and talking about something.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting dynamic.
You know, so it's like less. The expectations are getting smaller because of this stuff, but I think they still want the big iron occasionally, you know?
I mean, I found myself first picking up a DSLR not because it was cheap or anything like that, it was because it offered a solution to a problem. Because back in the times when I picked up the 7D or the 5D for the first time, you know, we didn't have any of these things like F5s, F55s, Canon C300s, Blackmagic. They didn't exist. So your choice was you either have, you know, a super expensive camera that you can't afford, or something you can go and pick up for $1,000 that sort of did the job. But I think for a lot of us at a particular level, once these other cameras came along, it was the natural migration, because it was like, oh, you know, this is great. Here comes this camera. This is what I want. It's got audio. It's got NDs. It's got everything that's this thing. But so, do you think, from a learning perspective, it's still good for someone who's maybe getting into the industry for the first time to pick up a DSLR, because it teaches you a lot about more along the lines of what filmmaking's about. You know, you don't have zoom lenses, you've got to reposition shots, and it teaches you about ISO and shutter and all these things that are not normally present in, you know, video cameras in the past.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I've been to a lot of film schools, being in a position at the company, and I mean, I'll tell you what, you go to NYU, you go to Columbia, you go to all these big schools, and they'll have really fancy cameras in the cage, and every single student has an SLR. They all have one. And why? Because they can. They're accessible. They can get it for all the same reasons. And the school provides some, but they don't even have to. They provide cards sometimes and some lenses. But but it's huge for them. You're right. Learning the basics of photography, essentially.
It's the school of life.
It is.
Getting out and just learning it. Because there's always going to be, no matter how good your film school was, this is certainly with the case of mine, there'll always be a chasm, and it's any education probably. There'll be a gap between what you learn in the school and the real world. You know, I studied film school, whatever. We loaded and practiced loading 16mm mags we had competitions doing it. You could win a beer at the local club, pub, whoever could lace things fastest. My first day in the wilderness was like, here's a 1,000-foot roll of 35mm. Here's a BL3 mag. I need this film on set like 10 minutes ago. And I was like, I mean, that was a pretty extreme example. But, you know, if you can get out and, you know, if the old days, even starting directing, if you wanted to shoot your own film, you had to beg and borrow a camera from a rental company. You had to find stock in the fridge that was going out of date. You had to beg a telecine. You had to beg an editor. None of it was homebrew. None of it was
There was
accessible.
a massive barrier to entry.
It was.
So it definitely solved.
And SLRs help that so much. I mean,
now
really
you
do.
can, So
I think that they still do something that this is like a pro DSLR forum. They still do something that that almost nothing else does, is they still take photographs. You know, so it's like, and what's going to teach you about composition, and what's going to teach you about all, you know, all those elements better than just shooting still photos. Like, I didn't shoot as a director, and this is like, it's actually, my producer laughs at me all the time because all I ever carried around was this tiny little, it was like a little tiny Canon point and shoot, the SD20 or something. It was like this big. It was the smallest possible camera I could ever carry. And that was my scouting camera, and I would just carry that. And then I got I got a DSLR, and I started falling in love with shooting pictures again. You know, just getting back into that world.
Yeah.
And kind of self-teaching myself all that. And I think that that's a perfectly great thing for anyone.
Yeah.
In the worst case, if you buy an SLR, when you're done shooting video with it, you can still take good photos.
Yeah, it just
it's still not a bad investment in time. So honestly, that's what I do. I have a 5D2. I bought it right at the beginning, like everyone else, and I loved it. I did it for the same reasons that you described. I loved it, and then now I just take photos with it. I'll take, I can borrow good stuff, you know, like better in some ways, better things.
I think as stuff gets cheaper and you start to own, you know, the whole rental thing changes and you own your own gear and you have an investment and you make a choice. The stuff that's going to win, it will be stuff like the Sony DSLR from yesterday, where it has a mount on it that is interchangeable. It's one of the things I love about the Epic is that I can take the mount off and I can put a PL mount on it and rent it and give it to the big boys. They can put it on a dolly, you know, kit it all up with ultra primes and you know, I can shoot it that way, or I can strip it all down, put my Canon lenses on it and go down the beach and shoot something fun on the weekend. So the stuff that will win, and the only thing that's lacking between that and the DSLR look for me is the size of the sensor. So if you can have that flexibility to be able to change your mount, take it from mucking around fun joy project, or put it on set and kit it up and not be embarrassed, and have the DSLR, the full frame look. You just want camera. The thing that's going to win is the stuff that's flexible, that can take it from any kinds of project. You don't want to have to buy 3, 5. We're all probably, you have DSLRs and you have F55s.
Do you still shoot DSLRs?
You have Scarletts and you have 7D.
When was the last time you shot Mr. News Shooter, not DSLR News Shooter anymore?
I have not shot DSLR for a long time. I think as soon as, it was a stop go for me, as soon as the F3 came along, I jumped on it and used that, and now I got the F55. And I had to actually shoot a job on a DSLR a while back, and I pulled it out and got it, and I forgot how frustrating it was.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have EVFs and all this sort of stuff on the side, and I'm trying to look behind the thing, and the sun's bright, and the audio, and I was getting really frustrated.
Yeah, I shoot scouting photos. I take it on scouts. I have a little kit that I take with me on scouts. It's DSLR, and I shoot scouting photos, and I always have it on set in case there's something that I see spontaneous, just as a backup, although less and less that's what happens because I can just grab one of the other cameras. And then, then I shoot my niece and then my nephew with it. You know?
So just going down a rat hole for a second, Andy, do you think that we're going to start seeing any design changes in cameras, or do you think the basic sort of like box concept that we're seeing on a lot of cameras these days is here to stay? Are we going to see cameras that are fully rigged out with their own accessories, or do you think this whole, here's the box, go and put whatever you want on it? Do you think that's
I talk a lot to the manufacturers. You know, we have a lot of back and forth. I talk to more vendors than I talk to customers sometimes. You know, and it shows like this that it is. And I think they realized recently that there's a lot of money in accessories. Right? And so Sony is not, they see this too. And you notice that they have a screen that has their own arm on it. You notice that? And they have their own base plate for their camera now. They have their own back. So and Canon is asking those same questions. So I think that they see the value in all the pieces being under their own header. So we'll see them take this idea further. I can see definitely Canon taking, you know, an idea of a C300 and making it into a more full-fledged camera and pushing it further, at least in that level. Knowing that Aries obviously already made that work for them at that high level, and Red for sure, you know, same kind of thing. They just bought Alma Technica for the same reason. Owning all the accessories makes more money, you know. So I think we'll see that go that way on the high level, and Canon will do the same thing in the SLR market, and Sony is doing it. So I don't know. I think they want to take it back because they realize that the Lakutas of the world made a lot of money on them.
It's quite interesting you said that, because we had Black Magic on one of our live panels earlier, and they basically said, I asked them, I said, have you got any plans to make, your own EVFs or anything like that? And they were basically, nope, there's plenty of people out there who are making great accessories for it. We'll just leave it to them.
That's why they ship stuff on time. Or well, apart from the last stuff. But generally, all their other stuff. All their other stuff. Generally, they say here's the thing, and it's shipping, because they don't. They're just trying to get the camera out and not all the other stuff. If you look at something like a company like Red, they are the kings of, making money with the accessories and then some. And often, I can see them sometimes maybe getting bogged down by not just doing the camera.
Do you see the prices of most cameras now, you think, progressively going to start to fall even more? Do you think the days of $100,000 cameras are over?
I want to know, because I have some expensive one in my booth.
Oh yeah. I mean, I like that. Which one, the Aton or something?
Aton, Red 65. Phantom 4K Flex, that's pretty cool though.
I'll tell you a little story.
That's probably the exception. Maybe.
I know someone who has an F65 that can't rent it. Can't give it away.
This guy.
Cannot rent it. So I think the price is falling.
I
think the price and the size is falling.
And you probably, apart from its size, you can't probably fault that camera. Images are
camera's amazing.
Amazing. Perfect. Amazing results.
Beautiful.
I think
that's not enough.
Yeah.
I think they're falling.
Best picture quality out there, hands down, but it doesn't matter sometimes.
I do think that there's a certain, it comes down to that thing, the thing I was talking about being able to deliver everything. You need to have a machine. It's everything. You need to have a machine in terms of the amount of people you have, that kind of machine, but you need to have a physical unit that you can rely on in all situations, and it's going to get you through that. And that guarantee will always command a premium. That premium may fall, but it's there's still going to be a consumer, prosumer, pro level, and the pro level is always going to command some kind of premium, just because when you need to get something done, there has to be that guarantee.
So I suppose, as owner-operators of equipment, you two here, is it a harder choice these days when you're looking to buy you've got cameras now, but if you were going to buy a camera in the future, there's a lot more to consider now, isn't there? The lifespan of cameras is not like it used to be in the old days. It's not 10, 20 years anymore.
High glass, yes, high glass. There's a reason why Angelo lenses are 3-year back order,
I think, part of it, as the crews do shrink, and I don't have the GGA constraints that Paul does, I am the smallest crew that is possible, but generally I have more people, but I think the decisions aren't just the price of the camera. It's the other costs involved in terms of data management and what your post requirements are. Like if you have red codec, then you've got this whole post back end, and what are the hidden costs? Debayering, decoding cards. Are they proprietary, or is it something I already own? Am I going to generate 300 terabytes this week, and my editor's going to want to shoot me through the head, or am I going to give him one drive or 5s? Because are we going to make our schedule? Or if you're if you're a road warrior and you're just trying to do it all yourself, this is all the hidden costs of an expensive camera.
Time is a hidden cost too.
A cheap camera can end up or a really expensive camera can end up being cost you.
This might be a good question for you, Andy. We've seen all these cameras now that are shooting 4K RAW, and beyond, and the amount of data required is getting increasingly bigger and bigger. But we don't seem to be seeing the same sort of, increase in speed from developers who are making hard drives and things like that. They seem to be sort of lagging behind now the camera technology. So storing your material, archiving your material is becoming a huge challenge, and then you have to buy state-of-the-art computers that are able to process this stuff and even view them.
Yeah, that's true. The data we're talking about these days is enormous. We have extreme examples of like F65 and Red Epic at 3:1, and we could go crazy here. And the Phantom recording, an hour per terabyte. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And those examples, do push the boundaries, right, of computer technology to the point. If they think about the IT industry, it evolves very fast, relatively speaking. But we've somehow we tend to get behind and then we get really far ahead, faster. And that's what's happened right now. We've actually pushed our data rates way too high for them to keep up with us, the regular IT type. I mean infrastructure type system. So a standard office set up with a 1 gig Ethernet connection just can't handle that kind of data rate going through it. So there's going to be a catch-up time. It doesn't. Are we gonna stop? Are we gonna slow down? Or and they're going to speed up? Or what's going to happen in between? I don't know. That's a good question. That being said, there are very high-speed things being developed at all times to meet that, but they're coming at a premium. So you may have, just like you said before, you may actually be spending more and more in post to handle that data.
The machine gets offset. You know. Yeah. It's like it's interesting because everyone thinks they're saving money.
Yeah.
But the machine gets offset because now it's like you have data wranglers and DITs and things.
Right.
Best job to get into right now is if you want to work all the time is be a good DIT in New York or LA. You're going to work every day.
Yeah.
And
we're not shooting less data, are we?
No, and you got it. You got when you're shooting, you need someone to wrangle that stuff. Yeah. So that cost gets. That's just an offset cost.
Yeah, it's a big part of it, though.
The cost of the form factor too, and all those things. It's just like Blackmagic camera, like you're saying, they're going to let other people do this stuff. Well, Arri used to do that for you.
Yeah.
It was all part of the gig.
I think about Blackmagic camera, the new one, 4K, right?
Huh?
What do you think the data rate is on that 4K? It's uncompressed DNG per frame. What is it? Do we know?
A lot.
Because right now, uncompressed 4K Canon, which is uncompressed raw, same thing, is about a terabyte an hour, right?
It's probably insane.
Yeah.
I think it may be even more than some of the red. I think I got a clip from. I think I got a clip from the raw, from the recorder, raw recorder for the R55, from the F55, and it was. I think it was maybe 10 seconds long, and it was 3 gigabytes or something.
It's big.
Yeah, although that's
half the data rate.
Although both those,
it's
data rate and it's also processing too, because like the data rate thing is one thing, but it's like, I'm sure it's huge. But it's also it's also an open format, so you can actually a decent computer can actually attack it. You can add more video cards and stuff. Whereas like someone like Red, who has a really proprietary workflow, you got to buy all their stuff to touch it.
That's true. Yeah. I think that but I'm just saying about the Blackmagic is the cost, really the hidden cost of it is the hard drives. It's not even hidden.
Yeah, you can't shoot it out of the box. You got to go and buy an SSD.
You can't even hold it out of the box.
You can't hold it out of the box. Can't hold it. Can't shoot it. Can't look at anything.
512 gives you probably half an hour, not even that. Half an hour of footage on it. It's a lot of data. Yeah.
So I might be able to ask you this, Andy, because you'll have to keep by partial. But
yes, I'll try.
I just wanted you. Both Jason and Paul, what's your personal take on the new Blackmagic cameras? You've seen them for what they are.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Would you buy one?
I would not buy the 4K one.
No.
I would buy the little one just because it's as someone if you come from the world, if my director Scout camera could be this big, and that's the kit I'm carrying around. That's pretty great.
I want to buy one too.
If I could do that and be able to put a PL mount lens and go out with a PL and Scout, it's
a great director's viewfinder.
That's a great director's viewfinder, and maybe I can use it as an occasional.
As long as you're shooting, as long as you're using Micro Four Thirds lenses to shoot your main thing.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's like it puts itself into it. It's got that thing where it's small enough. It doesn't hit that super sweet spot for me, but it's of the two, that's the one I get. The Blackmagic camera, the form factor, it's a great, I come from originally the post world, and every post dork I know wants that camera because it is a perfect studio camera.
Yeah, it is.
You sit in there, green screen, all that stuff.
It's got all green screen.
It ticks off every post box. So I think for it's going to find itself. I think it's going to find itself in a lot of studios. Yeah. It's going to find itself in situations, in a lot of corporate situations, and things that there's again, niche stuff. It's going to find itself in all those things. As far as running and gunning around, I don't really see it. We haven't talked about this, but I know that Jason and I both spend huge amounts of time with Ergo. how do we get our camera
Huge
on?
amount.
How
That's
can
probably
we get
50%
our camera?
of my eyeballs are spinning around here for
Now,
ergonomics.
the right
Because
rig.
we've all done it.
Yeah.
We all have a whole box at home. I'm sure you
Easily.
guys do too,
Oh,
full
yeah.
of
Boxes.
rails and
Oh,
rigs
yeah.
and things like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You spend
It's a
hours
constant
sitting there
battle.
fiddling around.
It's
going,
just the
"This doesn't quite
EVF's
work."
here. Where do I put my hand for the lens? Now that the camera's here,
Big one
and it's like,
corner.
how do I focus? And it's like all that stuff, and it just seems like
And none of it goes to
Yeah.
really helps with what goes in front of the lens. It's all just like making it be less horrible to
So
shoot
if you
with.
had a recommendation for young people who are out there who maybe they're buying their first camera or something like that, do you think maybe it's a bad idea to rush in and grab a 4K camera if you don't have experience with the sort of workflow and things like that? Do you think
I totally think it's a horrible idea, because I don't think you're going to be able to. Most of the people, it's the same thing happened with the Scarletts. You know, there's a lot of people who bought the Scarlett camera for, $15,000, and it was like their life savings.
Yeah.
And they like came up from the DSLR world, and even though the 4K Blackmagic camera is less of a life savings, it's still, you're spending a lot of money, and you don't really have a use for it, and it doesn't really work when you got to shoot the wedding, or it doesn't work when you have to shoot the corporate stuff that you have to shoot, and that's where these people come from, and the sports stuff.
What I would say, and I always say to our clients that come in, it's like buy it. And we say, you said at the beginning of the show, buy the tool that works for the job you're going to work on the most. If you don't have a way of paying off the camera, don't buy it. You know, it's an investment. I liken film equipment to construction equipment, right? You buy it to make money on it. If you don't make money on it, you're not buying a backhoe. You're not going to buy it. It's just not going to happen.
We're almost out of time here, so I just want each of you to sum up for a minute here. Back to our original question, is DSLR dead?
I knew you'd do that.
Final thoughts, is DSLR dead?
Is DSLR dead? It's for me, it's dead for my workflow for now. Until something changes with it, it's dead for my workflow now. As a global construct, it's not dead at all.
It's not dead for me because clients still look at a lot of my stuff and a mix of stuff that I've shot on a variety of cameras and styles and the way those cameras make you work, and they still say, we want that. I want number 15. We want some of that
and
one.
you'll still go and shoot it with the Epic.
And so I'm literally facing that now. I've spent a lot of time doing Epic the last few months, and my first job when I get back is a DSLR one because exact client said exactly that, and I can't in all conscience then sort of give them another camera.
Right, yeah.
I'll just have to work around all of that stuff and get my rig and try and make it as best I can until they come up with a C100 with a full frame, which is going to be...
It's close. C100 is really close.
C100 is probably the closest thing.
Yeah,
answering your question of what should people buy, save the money, get a C100 or something.
A C100 with full frame would be a sweet.
Yeah, it's ergonomically nice and sweet. And,
Would that be your tip too, Paul? For somebody who's getting in at their first camera, what would you
Teradek.
recommend?
First camera, like a student or something,
Yeah.
I would say get a 5D.
I think it's still good for students too. I don't think it's dead for them. I think it's a great first camera.
I'd say you get a 5D, a full frame camera.
Yeah.
You'll fall in love with shooting stills again, and you'll be able to shoot some damn fine video. And
The
that's the
DSLR
camera.
is dying, but the DSLR style, I think, is here for a while.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks very much for joining us again on the newshooter.com live panel. We'll have more throughout the week here at NAB. I'd like to thank our guests, Andy, Jason, and Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.